Have you ever noticed the subtle shifts? The way you might instinctively reach for a wall walking down a hallway, or how you now use a shopping cart as a sturdy anchor instead of just a basket on wheels. It doesn't happen all at once. The decline in our balance is often a quiet process, a slow erosion of confidence that starts with a few cautious steps and ends with a genuine fear of falling. But what if I told you that this isn't an inevitable part of getting older? What if your balance isn't fading away, but being quietly undermined by 5 common and entirely preventable mistakes? The good news is, these are not mysteries you have to solve. They are habits you can change. By understanding these 5 culprits, you can reclaim your stability, rebuild your confidence, and move through your world with the same freedom you once took for granted. In this video, we'll dive into these common errors and, more importantly, offer simple, practical solutions. Let's find out how to stand taller and walk stronger. We often think of our legs as the pillars of our balance, but the true foundation lies in our feet and ankles. These are the intricate, sensory-rich parts of our bodies that send constant, real-time information to our brain about the ground beneath us. Think of them as your body's on-the-go GPS, making instant micro-adjustments to keep you upright. However, a lifetime of wearing restrictive, overly cushioned shoes and walking on perfectly flat, predictable surfaces trains these crucial muscles to become lazy and unresponsive. As we age, this passivity only worsens. Our feet and ankles, once quick and agile, become stiff and slow to react. They stop sending that vital sensory feedback to the brain, which means when you hit an uneven patch of grass or misstep off a curb, your body is slow to respond. The result is a stumble, a wobble, or a fall that could have been easily corrected by a younger, more active foot. Let's talk about Eleanor, a 68-year-old artist who loved to paint in her backyard. She started avoiding the grassy parts of her garden, sticking to the paved patio. "I just feel so unsteady on the lawn," she told me. "It's like my feet have forgotten how to grip." When we looked at her feet and ankles, her mobility was limited. They were so used to her thick-soled sneakers that they had lost their natural responsiveness. We started with simple exercises. She would pick up marbles with her toes, do heel-to-toe walking in her kitchen, and roll a tennis ball under her foot to loosen things up. Within a month, Eleanor was not only back on her lawn, but was also walking barefoot on the cool grass. A small but significant victory that gave her back her confidence. The second mistake we often make is thinking of balance as a static skill, something you do while standing still. In reality, balance is dynamic. It's about how your body coordinates a series of movements, from walking and reaching to bending and turning. As we get older, we tend to simplify our movements. We avoid twisting to reach for a pot in the back of a cabinet. We take slower, more deliberate turns. And we stop reaching overhead to grab something off a shelf. This cautious behavior, while seemingly safe, is a slow and steady form of neglect for our body's dynamic balance system. By avoiding these complex movements, we fail to train the network of muscles, nerves, and sensory systems that work together to maintain stability during motion. Our core, hips, and back muscles, which are vital for controlling shifts in our center of gravity, grow weaker. The proprioceptors, the nerves in our joints and muscles that tell our brain where our body is in space, get less practice and become less accurate. Our body's ability to smoothly transition from one position to another starts to fade, leaving us vulnerable when an unexpected movement is required. Consider Robert, a retired teacher who had always been proud of his independence. He came to me after a close call where he nearly fell trying to reach for a book on a high shelf. "I used to be able to do that without thinking," he said, shaking his head. "Now, the moment I shift my weight, I feel wobbly." Robert's problem wasn't a sudden decline. It was the result of years of simplifying his movements. We began with gentle, flowing exercises like Tai Chi and simple stretches that involved reaching and twisting. The key was to move slowly and deliberately, retraining his brain and body to work together. He was amazed at the difference. "I'm not afraid to reach for a dish in the top cabinet anymore," he told me with a smile. "My body remembers how to do it." This might be the most common and easily avoidable mistake, and it's one we rarely consider. We spend a lot of time and money on home safety, installing handrails, adding grab bars. But we often overlook the little things that silently increase our fall risk. I'm talking about loose rugs, power cords stretched across walkways, and cluttered hallways. We navigate these hazards daily, assuming we're used to them, but a moment of distraction is all it takes for a trip or a slip. The reason these seemingly minor issues are so dangerous is that they force us to make constant, small, and often unconscious adjustments. We learn to step over a rug, or we carefully sidestep a pile of magazines. These are not grand movements, but they add up, demanding extra cognitive load and disrupting our natural stride. They also create a false sense of security. We think we know where the dangers are, but all it takes is a misplaced slipper or a new item on the floor to trigger a fall. I worked with a woman named Carol who, despite being physically active, had 3 falls in her home in a single year. She couldn't understand why. "I'm in great shape," she insisted. But a walkthrough of her home told a different story. Her living room was a maze of power cords, her bedroom floor was littered with clothing, and she had a dozen throw rugs that were not anchored to the floor. The worst culprit was the small, decorative stool she kept in the middle of her hallway. "I always step around it," she said. But one night, she was in a hurry and tripped, landing hard. After we decluttered her home, secured her rugs with non-slip pads, and rerouted her power cords, her fall stopped completely. The solution wasn't about strengthening her muscles. It was about removing the obstacles that made her daily life a constant balancing act. When we start to feel unsteady, our first instinct is often to grab onto something, a cane, a walker, or even just the furniture and walls around us. This feels like a smart, safe choice. But what many people don't realize is that excessive reliance on these aids can actually accelerate the decline of our natural balance. By outsourcing the work of staying upright to an external object, we tell our body that it no longer needs to perform this function on its own. Over time, this reliance creates a feedback loop. We use a cane, our balance-related muscles get weaker from lack of use, and we become even more dependent on the cane. The inner ear, which is responsible for detecting our head's position and motion, gets less practice and becomes less accurate. Our brain, which relies on a symphony of signals to maintain balance, starts to receive a muffled, incomplete message. While walking aids are absolutely necessary for some, using them when you don't need to is like putting a cast on a perfectly healthy arm. You may be preventing a temporary injury, but you are creating a long-term weakness. I remember a man named Walter who had been using a walker for 2 years after a minor surgery, long after his doctor had cleared him to walk unassisted. "It just feels safer," he explained. The problem was, his gait had completely changed. He was shuffling, leaning heavily on the walker, and his core muscles had atrophied. He was, in effect, a strong man who had trained himself to be weak. We started with a gradual program to reduce his reliance on the walker. We would practice standing without it for short periods, then walking for a few steps, and then a few more. It was a slow, sometimes frustrating process, but the results were remarkable. Walter eventually regained his confidence and was able to walk short distances around his home with a firm, steady stride, no longer tethered to his walker. Our final mistake is one of omission, ignoring how other health conditions, even seemingly unrelated ones, can silently sabotage our balance. We tend to compartmentalize our health, but our body is a single, interconnected system. Conditions like diabetes, which can cause nerve damage in the feet, neuropathy, or blood pressure issues that cause dizziness, directly impact our ability to stay steady. Vision problems, even mild ones, can compromise our depth perception and spatial awareness, making it difficult to judge steps and curbs. Ignoring these conditions is a major oversight. When you have a foggy, unclear picture of the world, your brain can't make the precise, split-second adjustments needed for balance. If your blood pressure drops suddenly when you stand up, you get dizzy. If the nerves in your feet are numb, you can't feel the ground. These are not balance problems in and of themselves, but they create a cascade of issues that make a fall far more likely. Meet Frank, a 78-year-old who came to me with a history of unexplained falls. He was frustrated, insisting his balance was fine and his doctor had given him a clean bill of health. But a deeper dive revealed a different story. He had a history of diabetes, and his feet were showing early signs of neuropathy. More importantly, His bifocals were making it hard for him to judge the distance of steps, and his blood pressure medication was causing occasional lightheadedness. Once we addressed these issues, getting him a new set of single vision glasses for walking, adjusting his medication, and working on foot sensitivity exercises, his falls stopped. It wasn't just one thing. It was a perfect storm of small, treatable conditions that were all contributing to his instability. So, what's one change you can make today to improve your balance? Maybe it's finally decluttering that hallway, walking barefoot on the grass, or talking to your doctor about that dizziness you've been ignoring. Whatever it is, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more content on living a strong, independent life. Thanks for watching, and here's to many more steady strides ahead. Thanks for watching. Hit the bell icon for the daily updates. Please do like, subscribe, and share with your friends.